My name is Nathan Kalwicki. I was in the U.S. Army, and my rank when I was medically retired was E4. Grew up, I had my mom, my dad, my brother. My brother's about 4 years younger than me. We did snowboarding and skiing. It was just about 5 minutes away. There was a little hill near us, and my parents provided those opportunities, and we kind of got a little bit of everything in that regard. My favorite classes were music theory, and so I took some music theory classes throughout school and connected with those kids. The time came when we graduated. I decided to go to a tech school, like it was ITT Tech. I went there for computer programming, and it was all right. Like I did fine. It was just the social environment again. It felt a lot to me like school, and just sitting there and kind of like getting talked at. It was just not the environment I wanted. I don't know, didn't connect with it. So I dropped out after like 2 semesters of that. And my parents were just like, I was still living at home, and they're like, well, if you're not gonna go to school, then you're gonna get a job, or you gotta get out, you gotta do something, like you're gonna have to move out. I think that's where the military idea came into my head. I talked to some different recruiters. I talked to like the Marines, and I think it was mainly the Marines and the Army I was between. I wanted to do like the Army Ranger thing, and you know, I learned about like Green Berets and that path. So I told my recruiter, oh, I want that. There's an Army, infantry, like 11 X-ray contract that was supposed to, you go in, you get to go from basic to airborne, and then try to do the Ranger thing, which I wanted that contract. And they're like, well, that's gonna be, you know, another year or something. You'd have to wait to get that contract. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want to go sooner than later. So he's like, oh, but there is just this this infantry airborne contract, whatever that was called, but you won't get any like sort of signing bonus or anything like that. I'm just like, all right, I want to do that. I want to like get in as soon as I can. May 2010-ish, I think that's when my entry date was. I went to basic training at Fort Benning, Georgia. Overall, it wasn't that hard of an experience when I look back at it, but it was definitely a shock for me. And then from there, I went to my first duty station, which was Colorado Springs, the 4th Infantry Division, and then went to a heavy mechanized unit, which was 4th ID, and it was a rear detachment. So a bunch of us went to this rear detachment. So that meant that the rest of the unit was deployed already. They were in Afghanistan, and that was just like the sort of support, running basic logistics and funneling guys that as people would get wounded, casualties, we would be the pool of guys that would be sent to replace them. By the time that 6 months had passed, it was, you know, a lot of us that came there were just sitting there and we didn't deploy. So then that unit was coming back, and the next brigade over were getting ready to deploy. So they were like, all right, this brigade's deploying, anybody want to volunteer? And everybody volunteered, because we all wanted to just go and do the job that we were supposed to do. Then we were deployed in, I think, June of 2011. We were deployed to this Farah Province in the southwestern kind of corner of Afghanistan, and it's sort of a deserty climate. My unit, which was the 4th Infantry Division, 2nd Brigade, so 110 Cav, it was bandit troop, and they were like Cav scouts. So I was like an infantry guy attached to a Cav scout unit, you know, that was in a mortar platoon. The main mission for the company, and I think larger, the entire army, the entire military in Afghanistan at that time, was to train the Afghan army. So that involved doing courses for them, showing them how the weapons operated, kind of lead, like we'd lead part of a patrol and then be like, all right, you guys take over and do the rest of the patrol. So I had been deployed for approximately 6 months. I think I had just gotten back from an R&R, rest and recovery, went back for Thanksgiving and see my family and some friends. So early morning, like we had talked the night before, like did a little, brief and went over what we're doing generally. Like we're going out to this compound that is now A&A controlled. It had been a joint compound, they'd call it, where there was American soldiers and Afghanis living on the same compound. And it was kind of like remote, but because there wasn't really a ton of action or things happening out there, they decided to pull the resources in closer to where there was more things happening. But we still had to go out there and check on them and make sure things were still going smoothly. The night before, so I was like kind of sick, and basically was given the option to stay back. Like that night, I was like, all right, sweet, I'm gonna stay back because I'm sick and I'll just like pull guard duty or whatever. And then I think I remember waking up that morning and hearing the guys. I'm like, oh, it's kind of nice. I get to like sleep in a little bit. And everybody's getting ready, and then somebody like comes up and like, hey, Kalwicki, you got to get ready. This other guy's actually more sick. And I was like, oh, shit, I was kind of like a little bit grumpy, like, oh, I got to get ready, and wasn't prepared for this. And I think by the time I get there, it's like 8:30. Sun had just come up, and it was a nice day. And Christmas Eve, wasn't really thinking much about that. And we pull up and get into the compound, and the sort of procedure is just setting some of our guys up as guard like outposts. They have their own outpost set up, but we also put ours up there too. And then we had just a morning briefing where we all kind of gathered around in like a huddle, and we're getting our assignments for the day. Like, like Kalwicki, you're going to be with this team, and you guys are going to be on the patrol, and you guys are going to be out here and just training these guys on whatever, the saw and the 240 or whatever it may have you. So I remember being in that huddle, and I had my saw, and basically like Roger Sergeant, and like go like this, and then I fell to the ground and then heard the gunshots, and it was like a belt-fed machine gun. I knew like right away, and I'm like, wow, this is like thinking like I was already down. I knew I was wounded, but I was just thinking like, what's happening? Like, are we getting overrun? Like what's going on? And I kind of like look up, and I can see my guys running and getting to cover, like just to the edge of that couch. There was like a little ditch, so I see a bunch of my guys like getting there, and rounds are just flying up around me, and and I'm I feel like that fire and burning, and like, okay, it's not good. And then it seemed like a long time, but probably 30-45 seconds, the shooting stopped, and somebody's like, one of my team leaders is on me, like sort of like searching me, smacking me, like trying to, and then like my medic is working on me, and they're doing whatever they're doing, and I'm sort of in that, like I would say like Saving Private Ryan sort of, tell my mother I love her, and like I'm not like I'm ready. I'm kind of like fading out and wanting to just go to sleep, but squad leader or team leader is smacking me and keeping me awake, and until they call in the medevac, the chopper, and I just remember getting carried out to it and seeing like there's like these kind of Darth Vader looking guys, they're all in black and have masks on, and getting on that, and I think I was like, oh, can I have some morphine or whatever? And eventually they gave me some morphine, and I just blacked out, and I didn't really know really what had happened at that point at all. I was sort of in shock or just unaware. So as one of the A&A, one of the Afghan Army guys that they kind of like went rogue and started spraying into my platoon, like our huddle, And so 4 of us were wounded, and I was probably the worst. Yeah, like 2 and 3 weeks later, I wake up at Walter Reed in Bethesda, and I think like my dad was next to me, and I was, like just hooked up to all these tubes and stuff, but I really wasn't totally aware. I'm just like, and he's like, oh, like this is what happened. You got shot, you lost your leg, and that was just the start of the hospital journey.